What if the worst moment of your life was actually the test? What if the very thing that made you look like a failure in front of everyone was the exact thing that changed your destiny forever? This is the story of a man who stood in a room full of winners holding nothing, and walked out with everything. This is the story of a young man called David. David was not the kind of man people remembered. He wasn't the loudest voice in the office. He wasn't the most stylish. He didn't have the most impressive credentials on his wall. But every morning, before leaving his small apartment, David did one thing. He knelt beside his bed and prayed. Not for riches, not for fame, just one simple prayer. God, let me be found faithful today. He had prayed that prayer for 11 years. And for 11 years, it seemed like nobody was listening. His colleagues got promoted around him. Younger employees moved into bigger offices. David remained where he was, quiet, consistent, faithful. Some people pitied him. Others simply forgot he existed. But David never complained. He showed up every day and gave his best, because he believed something most people had stopped believing. That integrity was worth more than opportunity. Mr. Johnson had spent 40 years building his company from nothing. He had survived betrayal, financial collapse, and more sleepless nights than he could count. Now he was older, and he needed someone to carry what he had built. Not just someone talented, not just someone ambitious, someone he could trust. Because Mr. Johnson had learned a painful lesson over for decades of business. Skills could be trained, knowledge could be acquired, but character was either there or it wasn't. So one Monday morning, he called every employee into the conference hall. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Mr. Johnson stood before them and smiled. I have decided to appoint a new manager. The room erupted in whispers. He raised a small bag and held it up. Inside this bag are seeds. Confused silence. Each of you will receive one seed today. Plant it, care for it, nurture it. In 30 days, bring it back to me. The person who impresses me most will lead this company. The workers cheered. This seemed easy enough. One by one they collected their seeds and left. David held his seed carefully on the walk home. That night, before planting it, he prayed again. David planted his seed in a clay pot by the window. He watered it every morning. He checked it every evening. He moved it toward sunlight. He read about proper soil conditions. He did everything right. Days passed, nothing. A week passed, still nothing. Meanwhile at work, excitement was spreading like wildfire. My plant has already sprouted. Mine grew 3 inches over the weekend. I think I'm going to win this thing. David smiled and said nothing. But at home, alone in his apartment, doubt crept in. What is wrong with me? Why is everyone else succeeding? Am I doing something wrong? He checked the pot again. Still empty. He sat on the floor beside it and buried his face in his hands. And he prayed, God, I don't understand. I'm doing everything I know to do, but I have nothing to show for it. Help me trust you even when I don't understand. He wiped his eyes and kept watering the empty pot. By the 3rd week, David was the only person in the office without a planned update. His coworkers shared photos daily. Tall green stems, wide healthy leaves. Some had even started small fruit. Then a colleague pulled David aside. Listen, the man whispered. I know a shop nearby. Bean seeds. Cheap. Nobody will know. David looked at him. Just replace it, the colleague said with a shrug. Everyone wants to win. There's no shame in it. David was quiet for a long moment. The temptation was real. He thought about 11 years of being overlooked. 11 years of watching others move ahead. Maybe this was his chance. Maybe just this once. Then he remembered his prayer. Let me be found faithful. Not successful. Not impressive. Faithful. David shook his head. Thank you, he said quietly. But no. The colleague walked away shaking his head, and David went back to his empty pot. Day 30 arrived. The conference hall looked like a botanical garden. Lush green plants lined every table. Workers carried their pots proudly, some already rehearsing what they would say when chosen. Then David walked in, holding his clay pot. Empty. Just soil. Not a single leaf. Not a single sprout. The laughter started immediately. Did you forget to water it? Maybe you killed it. How do you manage to grow nothing in 30 days? The room erupted. David stood still. His face was warm with embarrassment, but he did not run. He did not make excuses. He simply found a spot and stood quietly with his empty pot. Mr. Johnson entered. He walked slowly through the rows of plants, nodding, examining, asking questions. Then he reached David. He stopped. He looked at the empty pot for a long moment. Then he looked at David, and he smiled. Not a polite smile. A deep, knowing smile. The kind that meant something. He continued his inspection and returned to the front of the room. I have made my decision, he announced. Every worker leaned forward. Mr. Johnson pointed directly at David. The new manager of this company is David. Chaos. He has no plant. That makes no sense. He grew nothing. Mr. Johnson raised his hand. Silence fell. 30 days ago I gave each of you a seed. Everyone nodded. What none of you knew, he paused, is that I boiled every single seed before giving it to you. The room went completely still. They were dead seeds. Cooked. Impossible to grow. Realization swept through the room like a cold wind. I started to the plants on the tables. Plants that should never have grown, because nobody had planted the original seed. Mr. Johnson's voice was calm but firm. Every plant in this room came from a different seed. A purchased seed. A replacement. He turned to David. Except this one. David planted exactly what I gave him. When nothing grew, he did not panic and replace it. When his colleagues laughed, he did not surrender his integrity. He came here today with an empty pot and a full conscience. He placed both hands on David's shoulders. That is the person I want leading this company. The room was silent. The same people who had laughed now stared at the floor, because they understood. They had won the appearance of success. But David had won something greater. He had won trust. That afternoon, David moved into the manager's office. He sat at the desk, ran his hand across the surface, and bowed his head. Thank you. Not to Mr. Johnson, to God. Because David understood something in that moment. His 11 years of faithfulness had not been wasted. They had been preparation. Every quiet morning, every overlooked day, every moment he chose honesty when no one was watching. It had all been leading here. The world will often celebrate the person with the biggest results, the tallest plant, the most impressive numbers, the most polished appearance. But God watches something different. He watches your quiet moments, the moments when nobody is looking, the moments when compromise would be easy and honesty would cost you. David's empty pot looked like failure to everyone in that room, but to the one person who mattered, it looked like gold. If you are in a season where you feel overlooked, unnoticed, or forgotten, keep watering your empty pot. Keep showing up with integrity. Keep praying that simple prayer. Let me be found faithful, because your moment is coming, and when it arrives, it will be worth every day you waited. If this story encouraged you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories of faith, integrity, and hope.